Hi, everybody. My name is Lee Wind. I'm the Chief Content Officer for the Independent Book Publishers Association, and this is the member benefits webinar all about Working Lit. And we are really fortunate to have both Joe and Sarah from Working Lit here with us to share their expertise. I'm going to share some slides, but before I do, can you both introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I am Joe Beal. I'm the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing, and I guess I'm also I guess I'm the co-founder and CEO of WorkingLit. So I have two hats.
I am Sarah Balabanlalar. I am the new marketing manager for WorkingLit. I was working in indie publishing before this and worked in indie bookstores. So now I'm happy to be on the other side of things.
Cool. And Joe, we're just asking, somebody's requesting if you can speak a little louder or turn your volume up a touch. That
Oh
would be
yeah.
great.
Is that better? Are we functional in my volume?
You're
Let me
still a
check.
little more quiet than Sarah is,
Oh,
so
strange. I wonder if that's a settings issue. Hmm.
I mean, I can hear you, but
Okay.
folks, crank you
Yeah,
up.
I should maybe I'll swap audio inputs. Um,
You have the suggestion that perhaps the sound is being received from the laptop and not your headset.
That better? Do I sound more in the? I'm using my computer's internal microphone.
You sound louder and tinnier, but I think that's fine. We know you're human. So thank you for adjusting that, and thank you for the feedback. Okay, so I'm going to, should I start sharing the slides?
Sure.
Okay,
Sounds great.
and both Joe and Sarah, I can see you. So rather than saying next slide, you can just like, put your hand up or go like this or tug your ear like Carol Burnett, whatever works for you. Um, some motion to advance, and then I will advance. Okay, let me share.
I'm actually I turned up my
Oh,
input. Is that better?
that's
Do I
so much
sound
better. Yes. And
okay?
you sound totally human again.
Phew. Okay, that was what I was going for. All right, excellent. Well, so we're gonna have a little bit of a brief history lesson here, and then we're gonna have a little bit of little recap. If you saw the presentation last summer about distribution, we're gonna summarize a little bit of that stuff, and then we're gonna talk about how we arrived at these features and what they can do for you. So, you know, my concept when I was a baby publisher is that I wanted to create the kind of resources that would have benefited me as a person seeking meaning in the world. I wrote a memoir about this, so let's not get too hung up on it, but this will become important later. Slide, please. And so 30 years ago, I had humble beginnings as a publisher. I was photocopying zines to sell behind the bar at our punk club, which, I do feel like is a prototypical publishing story, maybe just because it's my own. And then over the next 5 years, we were rejected by every single distributor in the industry, and that is not an exaggeration. However, I knew there was a market for our books because I was that market. Or, as my colleague Faith Harper puts it, write the book that you needed to read that no one else is writing. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's pretty much it. And so, slide. By 2003, we had an office outside of my house. We had, by this point, signed with a series of distributors, but none of them were really working out. We, you know, it didn't ever feel like the right fit. We had outgrown so many organizational systems because things worked best when we did them ourselves. And I think that's a story that I'm hearing more and more from publishers today, which is good and bad. Slide, please. So we were going on tour every year. We were doing shows all over the United States. And Nate Beatty, who managed our production office while I was out of town, um, slide. he when I came home from tour one time, he said, you know, we could build databases that just run all aspects and manage the whole operation. And you know, and that sounded good to me. So I was like, yeah, sure, you can do that if you want to. And I just didn't realize like how of an utter game changer that would be. Slide. Within another year, WorkingLit managed our invoices, our order fulfillment, our inventory, our website, our community management, our authors, our accounting, our strategy, and our statistics. And slide. And so every new feature that he added, it made me brainstorm 10 more because I realized like how, you know, game changing this was. And, you know, we figured out a way for WorkingLit to calculate royalties, customer management, you know, predictive order management, and inventory management. So basically, it could do all the parts that, you know, a computer could do better than a person. And we don't use AI, it's just math. You know, we're literally just like using addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So it's like, you know, there you don't have the predictive failures or problems of that. You know, it really is about like, you know, using math to predict the future. And then so let's actually, and I'm not seeing where the slides are. Is it? Yeah. Anyway, so but next slide. Let's take a quick look at what it means to distribute. And so a lot of these, I'm sorry, I can't see where it's no longer showing me the slide panel, which is tripping me up a little bit.
We're on the slide that says, what do you need to distribute books, with a whole lot of boxes and shelves of books.
Beautiful. Of course, it did show this to me quite easily when we were practicing, and now it does not. But so next slide, please. So you need basically 9 things, and none of them are as complicated as you'd think they are, or they sound like they are. You need a staffed warehouse, which, you know, can be like your living room or your bedroom or your basement or your garage or whatever. Slide. You need a fulfillment warehouse integration system like WorkingLit, you know, which conveniently exists. Slide. You need the ability to send your data to all your trading partners, or as people call it in publishing, because this industry hasn't really taken a lot of budges forward in the last 50 years. They call that an Onyx feed. Slide. And then you need a way to reach the people that, you know, like would be ordering your books, like marketing to trading partners, like bookstores or anybody else that would be like selling your books in their stores. Slide. And then, you know, telesales, like a way to actually like do the actual selling. And that can be field reps, that can be, you know, in the beginning for us, it was me calling bookstores, you know, and that was, you know, remarkably effective. Slide. And then you need something like Edelweiss, which is a digital cataloging service, and that'll help because it'll, you know, that's where people find out about what you have going on, and then they can sort of stumble upon your books that way. And you don't need all these things, but this is sort of like what we think of when we think of distribution. And so working with wholesalers is the next slide. These are just people that, like Ingram, that anybody would buy your books from, that, you know, would be somebody other than ordering direct, where your books might become available. And then next slide is the meaningful ways to market your books, meaning like you have to sell it to a store, and then the store has to sell it to a reader. So both of them have to be very committed and interested in what you're doing, or else all the books that go to the stores will get returned. And then next slide is methods to get paid for your invoices. So like if you're shipping books, you want to get money, you know, and WorkingLit does that too. And we built that because we needed that, you know, but it's really those 9 things. It's really that simple. Everybody will tell you it's more complicated than that. I swear it's like intentionally put in a black box so people feel like they can't just do it on their own. but I will tell you that whenever we did it ourselves, it was less work than doing it through a distributor, which is kind of shocking, you know. And so WorkingLit does a lot of other things too, you know, but those are, I would say, like the basics. And, you know, for a lot of this, I'm sorry, that was the next slide, advance, if you, and the bigger thing here is that it worked. You know, we used these tools to sell millions of books. We built these tools based on the actual things we needed and then the actual play testing and those things working for us. So it wasn't like, whereas literally anybody that has made a software like this, it's based on how they think publishing operates because it's owned by an outside company or, you know, venture capital or private equity or people that are trying to make money from what you're doing versus, you know, for us, this is like based on our actual play testing and learning from what does and doesn't work. So, you know, I'd say that's, you know, the biggest key here is these are the tools that we used to quintuple our sales over a period of 5 years after leaving our last distributor, because then we were like, well, why would we have a distributor if we can do this better ourselves? Slide, please. And then, you know, we realized how much this data and these tools had propelled our growth over, you know, our first 24 years. And we became Publishers Weekly's fastest growing publisher 3 years in a row. And that was really not a sentence I ever thought would come out of my mouth. Next slide. And then we realized that our software could be used by other publishers to recreate that success. So we asked Nate, and he, you know, he said, sure, that sounds cool. It's your software, do what you will with it. And next slide. With that blessing, we began rebuilding the code. And, you know, we figured if we can sell millions of books with no industry experience, we really just need to build out the tool in a way that other publishers could recreate our success. And next slide, which I believe should be my last slide. So I had people that helped me out when I was just like a messed up kid. And, you know, so like I want to pay that back by building all of our skills and knowledge into structural systems within WorkingLit. And Sarah's going to walk you through some of those next things about where we are and what we're doing and where we're going.
So I don't know if the slides synced with where you want to be in the slides, especially if you can't see them, Joe.
No.
So Sarah, how am I doing?
Yeah, great. Actually, when Joe said this is my last slide, that was the last slide. And that next one you switched to briefly, which has all the different, this one. Yeah, exactly. That's my first one. So that's perfect.
Huzzah, we did it.
Thanks. Huzzah.
Somehow.
I feel a bit like one of those people at a restaurant who just snaps to call their server over when I think of just gesturing you to change the slide. So I wouldn't treat you that way, but I will like do a little gesture.
I will keep my eye on you.
Okay, okay. And I'm not snapping at you. I don't need a refill on my water. I'm good. Thank you. Wow. Okay. Something really powerful that Joe was talking about there was, I knew there was an audience for Microcosm and for my books because I was that audience. I knew that audience. It was me. I think that's amazing. The amount of independent publishers in the US and in the world is growing every year, both in number and in market share. We're starting to see support of indies, albeit limited or complicated, from major prizes and media outlets and from a bigger diversity of prizes and media outlets. I was working for Deep Vellum and Dalkey Archive before coming here, and we were winning the Dublin Literary Award, and one of our authors won the Nobel year before last. And it was just, I mean, obviously it's a huge shift, but it's so amazing to see that kind of growth for all kinds of publishers. But something to keep in mind too is like there's no one way to be successful, and you know, traditional success is also complicated. WorkingLit isn't here to be like a prescriptive force that guides you into a certain model of success. Go to the next slide. You know what? I'm a hand talker anyway. This is going to be complicated. I'll just tell you. Sorry, otherwise you're going to be like, what does that gesture mean? That means turn the slide upside down and play it backwards. WorkingLit is here to help you reach that success, your model of success, by putting all the right tools in your hands. What's amazing about presenting to y'all as indie publishers is however many audience members there are, I think we probably see that many opinions on the audiences you want to attract, your goals, how you'd like to get there. Every time I look at one of the surveys from WorkingLit, and for the past couple of years, the responses are super diverse. Where are they distributed? How are they distributed? What do they want to be? How do they want to be distributed in the future? So whether it's one of those systems or a radical new system, you're creating a new right now, you know, there's just a remarkable variance of opinions. WorkingLit's strength. Thank you. WorkingLit's strength is that our software supports you regardless of the other business decisions you make. So our existing clients do vary from publishers distributed by Ingram to self-pubbed groups that rely on print to order and everything else. So what does our support actually look like in app? We can go to the next slide and start looking at examples. I had a lot of fun with the little arrows here. Number one, huge. Product data is easy to import and ready to export. All of your book's details are held in the app. You hold the keys, basically. So the way your publisher runs now might change as you grow, but WorkingLit is ready to assist if you do decide to move distributors, decide to self-distribute, start working with international accounts, that kind of thing. When we were talking to a publisher on a demo recently, they told us their main goal for management software and success software was having a single source of truth. And that really stuck with me, as it describes a lot of what we're trying to do, is be the single source of truth about the books. Hold your info in one place so it's easy access. Even in like my personal experience with a quickly growing publisher, seeing great success, it's really hard to balance that with the nitty-gritty of lots of new books. We were acquiring imprints. We were working with other publishers, and we were working between multiple distributors at once, both in the US and internationally, and it was nutty. It became very chaotic very quickly, and we had to find a way to, you know, manually fix those issues. We were working with multiple sources of truth for metadata and sales, which was a recipe for human error, often my human error. So I ended up relying on long Excel documents with lots of rows. You can imagine how much time that took. It's just scattered. We can go to the next slide. So WorkingLit, let's skip all that madness. Let's skip the Excel rows, cut out as much manual data entry as possible so you can focus on the good stuff. Formatting is up to the standard of Onyx. You know, all these different fields that you're seeing here are, but you don't have to use that particular system. We work with CSV uploads and exports right now. You can easily download your own data in a CSV file. You can see here on this page, it's as simple as popping in your book's info into a user-friendly field, into a series of user-friendly fields. Lovely. Or if you have a ton of books and you're deciding to come to WorkingLit with a long catalog and history, again, easy upload. You can do it all at once. So let me see here. I am distracting myself with the lovely chat, so I'm going to X that out rightly, and we'll get to questions at the end. Is that all right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you. We can go to the next slide. Fabulous. Something else WorkingLit is able to do that I adore is getting an inside look at your financial health without needing a full-time bookkeeper to show you these nice charts and graphs. We've got this really deliciously detailed reporting screen that I love. It can tell you so much about your business. We've got automatic profit and loss statements for your business overall, for each book, no opening a single spreadsheet. You can take a peek at some of our categories here that you have easy access to. And we can go to the next slide. And then a glory. You can tell that I care about this part a lot based on the stars. And a general financial summary as well. Note, hopefully your operating margin doesn't actually look like this. This is my test account, so don't take that part with a grain of salt. But you can see here, you have the ability to get to the core of the health of your business quite quickly without having to do all the math by yourself or open a long spreadsheet. Yay! We can go to the next slide. We also support your relationship with authors by making royalties easy, which is something like royalties and easy in the same sentence. Wow, never thought I would say that. So here's an example of our overall screen with the different kinds of, here's my example account again with multiple authors, multiple types of royalties and tiers. This is what your home screen would look like for royalties. We can go to the next slide. Fabulous. WorkingLit supports various royalty terms. So you can automate royalty payments and send statements from in-app. No Excels, no manual emails. Hopefully as few confused responses from authors as possible. As you can see on the right side, there's a statement email preview. Gives them a whole rundown of their book's status and how it's doing. So you're filling them in on all the deets that they need right away. And you can send these emails directly to your creators. We can go to the next slide. And WorkingLit has two key features that publishers benefit from right away. And the first one is accessible pricing. The pricing grows as you grow and not before. From free accounts to graded increases based on catalog size. As you can see here, if you've got fewer than 10 ISBNs in our system, your price per month is $0.00. So you've got the opportunity to test it out, try it out, and as your catalog becomes larger, only then does the price increase reflect. In addition, as Joe mentioned, we're a team that knows publishing inside and out, and we really want you to succeed because Microcosm and WorkingLit, we've seen a lot of success using these exact functions. We're ready to support you with demos, with quick responses from our team, and a personal fave, a Discord server, so you could connect with the folks who already have WorkingLit and are kind of in WorkingLit's world. It's a lot of fun. I like sharing our blog posts on there. And we can field questions really quickly on there. It's easy to hop on a call or a meeting. I'm pretty much always on our Discord personally. Ultimately, WorkingLit's backed by 30 years of publishing success. It's a tremendous amount of experience. And we know, therefore, what gets frustrating, where the bottlenecks are, what tools would be most valuable. You're not handing off the work to an outside company or a parent organization you don't know. You see our faces, but you're taking control of your own business. You can access the information you want when you want it. And you can focus on the parts of your press that are working and keep track of your business health and continue to grow something really special. Well, what's also exciting is because we've got kind of this living intel on what indie publishers need, based on our wonderful client publishers and also what Microcosm's built and adopted, we're bringing new features to WorkingLit regularly. And so we have a few slides with some hints and previews of what we're bringing to WorkingLit next. We can go to the next slide. And if it's all right with you, Joe, I would love to turn it back over to you to talk more about what these represent for WorkingLit's growth. Oh, you're muted.
I apologize. How's my audio, everyone? Am I audible? Fantastic. Okay, so what we did with a lot of this stuff is, we really looked at what services we would benefit from, and then we had brainstorms, and then we discussed, like what we could achieve if we had additional features. So, we looked at first and foremost, things like where are the books selling? Where is their growth over last year? What kind of stores are, are selling more of our books that didn't last year? And so that, that's like anything from like, in our case, like because of what we publish, it's like our gardening stores up from last year. If so, like we should find more gardening stores and we should sell them more books, Our, like who is currently having trouble. So like maybe we'll leave them have some space for a little while and then we'll come back when they're ready. So next slide. Is this the one that's like a very complicated chart of a bunch of uh, dollars and percent changes?
Yeah, this is percent change.
Ah, yes, yes. So this was my my something I spent a good chunk of last year on. So this is looking at that and so we run these reports on what we call in tech sandboxing, where so we built this where we have a version of the software that we play test on, and then when we get it where it's like working the way we want it to, then we make it available for other publishers to use. And so, this was something where, we really looked at it when we were like, we really need to know which subjects are up. Because when you have a typical dashboard for something like this, it just shows you your best-selling books. And, for a lot of publishers, those are just your newest books. They're not actually your best-selling books because a lot of times it's something is ranking because it just shipped last week. So it has the illusion of being there, and then it'll be so your new books and your best-selling books, but it doesn't actually tell you anything. So we looked at it from next slide, please. Trending titles. So which titles have the biggest shift over the same period before? And then, what we would expect from that. And then so we looked at it from like a profit and loss, where after taking all of the income and all of the expenses, where is the book today? Because in a lot of cases, if you don't do that correctly, you can have a best-selling book where you lose money. And so again, this goes back to like trying to bake in everything that, that I've learned across 30 years to say like, oh, if this was just built in, then people would have that information and then they wouldn't have to, well, they could learn from our mistakes rather than learning with our mistakes. And so a lot of that, those are sort of bigger, broader arc things. But next slide. And then we created print management, which is basically it tells you when you need to reprint a book, and then it suggests a quantity. So, this was hugely helpful because, it used to be that somebody would have to walk into the warehouse and say like, oh, how many cartons of that one are left? Oh, okay, we'll need to reprint soon. Or I can't find any more. It must be all out. Whereas what this actually needs to be is predictive, especially during the pandemic when it took a lot longer to print books. We needed to know. So what this does is it looks at the sales trajectory of the books. So we can say like, oh, this book is selling 4 times this quarter what it does during its average quarter. Like, what's going on there? That's awesome. And then it looks at how long the printer takes to print the books. And then it looks at how many we should print based on those factors. And then you can see in the expense column, it creates, okay, this is what the reprint is going to cost you. And then when you adjust those figures, it adjusts those costs because you can tell the software what, how much you're paying per unit, and then it can adjust. And so we're trying to share what we've learned that way also by being able to help you with managing those print runs by suggesting quantities. And then, so, we don't know if you like to live a little dangerously or if you like to live a little more like you're saving money and hedging your bets. But so either way, we would look at that information and then say like, oh, you might want to print this many or this many, depending on, how you lean exactly. And next slide. And then, looking at where money is coming from, where money is going, things like that. You really want to look at that holistically because this can be really helpful in terms of like where to adjust your budgets, you know, where to put more effort, where to put less effort, you know, things like that, that just were hugely transformative for me. And predicting cash flow is a big one, because the wild thing is that the computer, through basic mathematics, again, not AI, pretty much knows how much money you'll have coming in a month or 3 months based on what's been happening this year and how the previous year went, and how many invoices are owed to you, how many, you know, how typically overdue those people are paying their invoices, and things like that. So there, you know, we built out some other really wild features that we're sandboxing right now. The big one is like, which stores are due to reorder and how big should that reorder be, you know? So it gives you a daily digest, and it says like, this store is ready for this, and you know, and then so somebody in sales can reach out to them. And then, you know, initially we had, you know, it's a little bit, you don't want it to feel invasive. So instead of saying, hey, it's time for your order, you reach out to them and say, hey, here's some books you might have missed, or, you know, like, here's some new things that are about to be coming back from the printer, or here's bestsellers that are doing really well in stores like yours. And then, you know, like, everybody benefits, because like, publishing really works best when everybody that touches the book, you know, is getting something out of it, so that, you know, we're not just in a series of perpetual favors, we're in a series of perpetual, you know, mutual the benefit all around. And next slide, which I believe is our last slide, if I budgeted correctly. Yeah, and so, you know, reaching out is great. You can just set up an account and play with it. And it is free for under 10 titles. So that's, you know, the easiest way. And the idea is that as you grow, we grow. And we really think about this as like a cooperative, where the publishers that are using it, we listen to your feedback. We want your feedback. We want to know what ideas for features you have, so we can build those features. And a lot of times that's how we prioritize things right now, where it's like, somebody comes in and they're like, this is cool, this is what I would need it to do. And we say, cool, no problem. We can get that turned around in a month or two. And then, you know, that seems to really surprise people, I guess, because most of the world does not work that way. That's part of it. But, you know, really, like, the entire goal here is twofold. Like, we want you to be able to benefit from the same kind of successes that we have, because I had people that helped me when I didn't know what I was doing. And then also, you know, independent publishers are the fastest growing segment of the industry. So the more that we can help you, the more that you can help each other, and the more we can shift that, you know, away from the biggest houses. So please feel free to reach out to Sarah at workinglit.com, and you know, play around in there. And does anyone have any questions?
Yes, we have a bunch of questions in the Q&A box. There are a few in the chat. I've turned off the slides so we can see the two of you. And let's jump into questions. That was very helpful. Thank you. All right. Felicia's asking, how much flexibility does WorkingLit have? For example, if we wanted to plug our URLs and Google Analytics or similar into it, is that relatively doable? Or if we wanted to mark which books we do or don't have in our on-site library?
Ooh, this is a so I'm not understanding the first part of the question. So your I'll answer the second part of the question, then I'll probably need to the first part reframe. So that would be considered like warehouse location. So WorkingLit does track inventory, so you could have it say, this is how many copies we have in our on-site library, you know.
So
And
could you attach a URL or Google Analytics or something to each book?
Oh, I see. And then have it pull data from the web, or I'm not entirely understanding what the utility would be on the other end.
Alicia, can you expand on your question either in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll circle back to that. Let's bounce
Yeah.
forward.
In the
I'm
meantime,
sorry.
I just want to say quickly too, I think what Felicia's getting at is data other than book sales. But what I want to prioritize too is really poking around in the software and taking a peek at the reporting section, which we're growing right now, and it's lots of fun. So definitely go in there and see if that kind of gets at what you're looking for in terms of how many people, like based on your orders that you import or that you record, how many people are buying which books and when. And that's the kind of info that you can really easily get from WorkingLit.
Alicia did a follow-up. We want to track our analytics or product page visits in our
got it.
database alongside sales and metadata.
I love that. That's really smart.
Ooh.
And that, yeah, I mean, it's very, yeah. I will tell you a little bit shamefully, we don't do that presently. I know we have a feature on ours that says like these are the most searched for terms that brought people in, but it doesn't tell you that. So yeah, can you make a note of that, Sarah? That's really cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm definitely doing that.
I like how it's like, you're hearing questions and you're like, we can do that. And then you're going to make it happen. That's really cool. Tamara's asking, does WorkingLit work with QuickBooks Online, or does it replace the need for QuickBooks Online?
We have never, well, not to sound like a person of a certain age, but we made this before, when Quicken was the software before QuickBooks. So we have never used an outside accounting service. We just do every single thing we do in WorkingLit as our accountant.
Thank you for clarifying. Martha is asking, anyone using WorkingLit for audio and or ebook sales?
Yes, there are current users who are using our software for ebooks and audiobooks. Because we break things up by ISBN, it's pretty easy to pop an ebook asset into WorkingLit. And then when you're sending royalty statements to your creators, you can bundle statements for those multiple products into one email. So you can send everything to your creator at once.
Cool. Tamara's asking, is this something that can be integrated into our websites to help manage those orders as well?
Spoiler alert, we are building that out where, yes, you would either have a plugin to like synchronize your data, or our long-term goal, and so our website, this predated Shopify, it predated all these sort of pre-built website systems. So ours just creates our website from the database. And so that's essentially something that we're going to build into it as well, but we'll have essentially a plugin in the meantime if you are, liking the system you use now. And that was Sarah's idea. Credit where it's due.
Angela is asking, does the system manage subrights? And if so, for the free version or just the paid one?
Yeah, so it does. What we're currently working on is a couple of different things at once. Joe, let me know if I jumped in ahead of you, but I was just talking about this with Ellie this morning, actually, because we're working right now. There are a variety of different types of royalty tiers you can build in, but what we're working on is a couple different things. Really, it's our first priority right now. What we're calling nested tiers, which is basically like the ability to handle the full contract for a book with various tiers in one royalty. So right now, what you could do is create a separate ISBN for the subrights for the different version of that title, so you could track its royalties separately. But like literally within like a couple months, you should be able to do that all under one ISBN, track all that.
And so
does that reflect, Joe?
Oh, yes. I was going to add, I feel like a very important detail here is the free software is identical to the paid software. There's no change in services. It does exactly the same things. So the idea is that there's never a barrier to entry, that if you're starting out, you can use it for free.
And then once you have 11 ISBNs, then you have to pay. However, IBPA members get 10% off the pricing when you have 11 or more ISBNs. So
You are hired, Lee. Well done. Well done.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, a lot of it too, like the way we handle it in our system with subrights is, we get a report for like we sold this much in France, and then we have an ISBN for that title, and then it pays the royalty to the author, and then we get audiobook rights sales, and then we put that report in, and these are all just, they're all just, each one is set up as a different ISBN, and then we pay out royalties on those, and that's pretty easy. We are finding that publishers have increasingly complicated and rather esoteric ways of managing their contracts and their royalties. And that has like really tested the organizational systems of our team, because the real thing is every single person can do it differently. So we have to build for every possibility. So we are doing that.
Cool. So our iPad user, whose name is unknown to me, is asking, how does the sales and marketing portion work? Is that integrated into WorkingLit?
So it's the same, sales and marketing, again, these are tools, these are reporting tools. It doesn't do the selling for you. It's sort of like anything else, like your living room is your warehouse. WorkingLit shows you information that you would act on. It cannot save you from yourself, but it can try and protect you from making mistakes that we have in the past. And it can help you to hopefully reach, the more successful echelons that you want to achieve. So, it's going to show you what's working for you, and then we've built out various things, and we're really open to ideas with that moving forward about other things that would be helpful.
Can I ask a follow-up? So if a publisher has decided to do a promotion for one of their titles on Edelweiss, let's say, is there a way to attach that in WorkingLit as a marketing expense against that title to then be able to see, do the math for us, right? Like, was it worth it? Did the sales actually pay for more than the cost of the ad? Is that something that it does?
I love this question. Yes, and this is absolutely what we do every day. This is like what we look at, like we run what, coupon codes, and then we say like, okay, like did that coupon code benefit us on the whole, or like, or like was it achieving something else, or we ran reports, so when we pay sales groups, those are percentages that are deducted, and we have a system where you can look at your operating costs of your press, and those are deducted. So it takes both of those out of your income, and then it takes your expenses out, and then it looks at like, what do you have left, and we found that some of our sales groups like were operating in a negative, and so we were like, oh, okay, we need to swap out those sales groups for somebody else, and that's really helpful, because I feel like a lot of people are just kind of like fumbling in the dark. And we've talked, I mean, in the infancy when we were launching this, we talked to so many publishers that literally would say, I don't know if I'm solvent or not. And you're like, I have thoughts about that, but like this is something that can help you with that.
Hmm. Martha's asking, what about merch? Like if you have t-shirts or something that isn't a book, is WorkingLit able to handle that?
Yep. It's just like another ISBN.
Cool. And you can you could group it, right? So if it's a t-shirt for a specific book, you could combine those. So you could look at the math of it.
Yeah, we sell like dozens of t-shirts and hundreds of enamel pins, and we sell all kinds of stuff too. So we had, again, it was like you benefited because of all of the bad/great ideas we've had over the years, and then having to build it around those.
Joe, I want to circle back to something you brought up earlier. You were saying that your system tracks when a bookstore or when a store is going to be running out of your book. How do you know the pace of sales at that store?
I love this question too. And so it really comes down to, so you have, when you have all your data in one place, the major advantage is all of your data is in one place. So it can look at the average interval. So like the average number of, so let's say that store has made 6 orders across, 3 years. So there's going to be what's called, you have the standard deviation and then you have the mean average. And again, this is just like basic statistical math. And so you can look at basically the average time between orders, and that will tell you with increasing accuracy as they've made more orders, very accurate data down to like, and and it's like, it's really wild actually how often it'll say like this store is like ready to make a new order, and then between the time when that email is sent and before the salesperson has contacted the store, the same day they will have made that order. And you're like, that's like uncanny. It's like,
So you said that the email is sent out. The system is sending an email to your sales team?
yeah. And so, right. So they'll get a digest that it's like, here are the stores that should be making an order based on all the information,
Oh, that's setting your sales team up for success. That's really cool.
We want them to win.
We have a bunch of other questions. Can you all hang out for a few more minutes? Okay, great. Brian's asking, can my KDP sales report be uploaded into the system to track those sales for royalty tracking?
I haven't worked on this site, Sarah. I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. I know lots of people do this, so I imagine it's like, my understanding is headers. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we just worked on this in the last couple days to make it even better, actually. Yes, so we've had this. Uploads are super easy, so you can track sales. And now what happens is, say the files you're uploading are from a couple different sources. They're slightly different. Our WorkingLit will work with you basically to map your data to the right headers. So if you have a little different kinds of columns per data source or whatever, it's totally fine. You just upload your CSV, make sure that the info is all correct, and double check, WorkingLit will double check everything for you. And then yes, all of those sales will be in WorkingLit for your benefit.
This is a related, I'm sorry, Joe, go, please.
I was just going to tell a story of triumph, if that's okay. So we get orders from each Ingram warehouse every day, and it used to be a major pain because they would put ISBNs in quotation marks, and then that would break the uploader. And then it's so beautiful that you literally just hit the download button and then you hit the upload button, and the computer is smart enough to ignore those quotation marks and then use the ISBN to figure out which title and then associate that to the quantity. And it's like literally one button. And I'm like, this is game change. I mean, not to tell you what my life is like, but that was such an improvement.
So a related question from Tamara, how automated is the data? Is it manually entered or is it brought in automatically through the different sales channels? Like, can you set it up to feed from the sales channels or are you still manually uploading it?
That is slightly complicated because the trouble of an industry that operates in the 1800s is that most industries use what is you would have like a synchronized digital information sharing system, whereas publishing works on EDI, which is a World War II era information sharing system. So you would, and that's true. That's not an exaggeration. And a lot of the argument for this is that EDI is much more secure because it's 80 years old. And you're like, yeah, but I think there's other reasons that we really should not be using this. And because, so if you know the platform Fair and Microcosm talk to each other. So when we get an order on Fair, it appears in our order processing queue. When we ship an order on Fair, it is automatically there's no it's beautiful, you know. Whereas since they are not a publishing industry company, they use modern, you know, information interchange systems, whereas nobody else does. So in most cases, you have to download and upload your data, though I suspect that over the next few years, publishing will get into the 20th century. And no, I did not misspeak.
Yeah,
We'll
and
just be 100 years behind.
Yay! So you can definitely, yeah, you can definitely upload various vendors' sales summaries into WorkingLit. You don't have to type it in manually. If you have one individual sale, you're welcome to type it in manually. We have one of the slides showed this. I can send it, the slideshow to y'all if y'all want or anything. You can type in an individual sale manually, you know, enter into our custom fields. But yeah, you can bulk load thousands of rows of data at once if you like. That's totally just like Joe was saying, download it from your other source, upload the CSV to WorkingLit, done.
Cool. One last question, and then final remarks, and we'll wrap it up on time. Janelle, I think this is going to be restating something you already said, but rather than me answering it for you, I would rather you two do it. Is there a royalty calculator with your software, or is it more selecting different tiers?
You want to handle this?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a calculator. It's so great. I really like, it won't take you more than a couple minutes to go in. It's a user-friendly system. So just make an account and try it out for yourself and you'll see what I mean. But basically you can, you select the different tiers, you create a royalty, and then in addition, based on any orders you've got in, based on any, you know, advance you pay your author, based on sales that the book makes, then you can calculate royalty statements at your leisure and send those off to the author, and those payments will then also be reflected in WorkingLit. So it just completes the circle and you can keep tracking all of your money input and output. Oh, Shonda, my heart.
Wow.
Well, we got a nice thing in the chat, which I have to vocalize because otherwise the people watching the recording won't see it. But Shonda just wrote in the chat, "This is one of the best webinars I've ever attended. Thank you." And you're getting a lot of love from the chat. Is there any final stuff you want to share before I turn the video off?
So we pay royalties on about 3,000 titles, and that takes one person about 4 hours. And most of that time is honestly reading, like manually just skimming to make sure nothing is amiss, you know, and that, you know, whereas this used to be like, it would most publishers of our size, it's a month of work, you know, and we built it as we built all these things because we had a problem and we wanted to solve it, and then we wanted to make it better based on the experience that we had for our success and your success. So, you know, we're not doing this as a business. We're doing this because it's like our responsibility to give back to the people that, you know, gave to us.
Yeah. And I'm pretty new to the team. I like any opportunity to dig into the software and try to fix an issue or brainstorm something with y'all. So truly reach out to me if you have questions or want to have a video call together and go through. I'm happy to test my new WorkingLit demo skills with y'all, and you know, let's figure it all out together.
And if there's things you want or could use from us, please let us know. Like, that's the most helpful feedback. We want to use the tide to rise all boats.
Fantastic. Joe, Sarah, thank you both so much. For everyone watching, thank you for checking this out. Please consider trying out WorkingLit. I mean, my gosh, it's free for less than 10 ISBNs or less. And then if you have more, then maybe you want to look at joining IBPA because then you get that 10% discount. We really appreciate all of you. And yeah, absolutely, Joe, a rising tide lifting all boats. That is what we want for independent publishing. All right, everyone watching, thank you.